everyone. Welcome, and look at this turnout for writers. It's just fantastic. It's fantastic. I'm Deborah Landau. I'm the director of NYU's Creative Writing Program, and we are so happy to be here tonight to celebrate NYU's writers and welcome new faculty members, Professors Claudia Rankine and Ocean Vuong, to NYU. Some thank yous to start off. I'd like to thank our deans, especially Dean Antonio Merlot, for his, for his support over the years in making it possible to bring these glorious writers to our community. I'd like to thank Jay Wegman and Jay DeLeon from Skirball for letting us use this fabulous space. If we tried to do this in our townhouse on 10th Street, I think we would have had a problem. Thanks also to the brilliant Joanna Yaz and the Creative Writing Program for making sure that tonight goes off without a hitch. And thank you to the NYU Bookstore for making sure that the authors' books are available after the event for you to buy. And thanks most of all to you for being here to join in tonight's celebration. I'm pleased to report that creative writing at NYU is thriving. We have programs for graduate and undergraduate students in New York, Paris, and Florence. Our incredibly talented graduate students are earning their MFAs and publishing their books and winning awards in record numbers. And at the heart of everything is our magnificent faculty, which is only growing stronger every year. Tonight, I'm delighted to present Reading It in Conversation, Terrence Hayes, Claudia Rankine, and Ocean Vuong. They're going to read in alphabetical order, and then they're going to engage in an on-stage conversation, and I'm going to introduce them in that order now. Helping us welcome Claudia and Ocean tonight is my longtime colleague, Silver Professor Terrence Hayes. Terrence Hayes has perhaps the most idiosyncratic and singular imagination of any poet writing today. His poems defy categorization, fusing narrative and lyric, the political and the personal, clarity and paradox, gravitas and play, and keep us fastened to the page with a sustained verve, brio, and headlong momentum that is truly exhilarating. His most recent book of poems, his sixth, is American Sonnets for My Past and Future Assassin. His many honors include a MacArthur Fellowship, a Whiting Writers Award, a Guggenheim Fellowship, and an NEA. And last year, he was inducted into the American Academy of Arts and Letters. He has not one but two books coming out in 2023. It's just a lot to look forward to. I'm honored tonight also to introduce Professor Claudia Rankine, who joined us last year to the delight of our entire community. She's an internationally recognized and renowned writer and activist, author of 5 books, including Citizen and Don't Let Me Be Lonely, 3 plays, including Help and The White Card, and numerous video collaborations. Her most recent collection is Just Us. Her numerous awards include a MacArthur Fellowship. In fact, all 3 of these people tonight have MacArthurs, a Guggenheim Fellowship, a National Book Critics Circle Award, and the Forward Prize. Claudia Rankine may be, as Wendy Steiner once said of Toni Morrison, the closest thing the country has to a national writer. She's one of the most urgent and essential voices of our time, author of our most prescient and catalyzing texts, simultaneously anticipating and helping to interpret our current moment. And I want to note that tonight she's going to be collaborating on stage with the vocalist and performance artist Helga Davis, who is a principal actor in the international revival of Einstein on the Beach and is also the host of the podcast Helga on WNYC. In addition to welcoming Claudia Rankine to our faculty, we've also just had the most incredible good fortune to welcome Ocean Vuong to NYU. He's the author of the internationally acclaimed novel On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, and an equally celebrated book of poems, Night Sky with Exit Wounds. His much-anticipated second book of poems, Time is a Mother, came out last spring and was profiled in the New York Times, The New Yorker, and Time magazine. In addition to being a prodigiously talented and accomplished writer, Ocean's also an alum of the MFA program at NYU. In fact, his first book was published while he was still a student here in the program and went on to win the T.S. Eliot Prize, the Whiting Award, and the Forward Prize. And in 2019, he was awarded the MacArthur Genius Grant. He's a singular talent, often writing from the perspective of an immigrant about the essential themes of family and history, grief and love. And it's that perspective, combined with his ability to write literary work that is both delicate and fierce, lyric and powerfully narrative, that gives his work its distinctive print. So this is going to be a great night. I'm so glad all of you are here. Please welcome our trio of writers, beginning with Terrence Hayes.
I'm so glad I can't see y'all. Welcome, everybody. It is such a joy to be here. I just brought a few quick things to read so I can sit down and ask some questions to our stars. And whatever questions y'all have. So look, I got 3 pieces here. The first one is American Sonnet for the New Year, which suddenly feels like maybe we're here in a moment of more hopefulness. Maybe this is the first time I'm thinking it as I look at this poem. But really it's just adverbs is what it is, a sonnet with adverbs. Things got terribly ugly incredibly quickly. Things got ugly embarrassingly quickly, actually. Things got ugly unbelievably quickly, honestly. Things got ugly seemingly infrequently initially. Things got ugly ironically, usually awfully carefully. Things got ugly unsuccessfully, occasionally. Things got ugly mostly painstakingly, quietly, seemingly. Things got ugly beautifully, infrequently. Things got ugly sadly, especially frequently, unfortunately. Things got ugly increasingly obviously. Things got ugly suddenly, embarrassingly, forcefully. Things got really ugly regularly, truly quickly. Things got really incredibly ugly. Things will get less ugly, inevitably, hopefully. All right. There's my handkerchief. I'm still trying to figure out how to read this one. Like I have music, I've tried that with it. It's in my pocket, but I'm like, maybe no music tonight. It's called Bob Ross Paints Your Portrait. Bob Ross Paints Your Portrait. And the thing is, it's like if you were to imagine, like maybe the paintings here, I'm Bob Ross. I'm trying to set it up. And the paintings here, and I'm like looking at you to paint you. So usually he paints landscapes, so he doesn't really have to look at anything other than wherever he's getting these landscapes from. So I'm just trying to figure out how you imagine that I'm talking to you while I'm painting you on a black canvas with black paint. That's the scenario. So maybe I don't have to move. Now is that clear? I think that's a good setup. Let's just read it. Okay. It's meant to calm me down, honestly. Like I already got a little sweat going. So when I wrote this poem, I was thinking about the voice of Bob Ross. So if you dozed off, I think that's good. Okay, here we go. Bob Ross Paints Your Portrait. You know what? I'm going to put the music on. Let's see. Let's see if I can find it. Hold on, let's see if we can get it up here. We just need a little background music. Today, we're going to get to work on the details of your expression. And believe it or not, the only colors we're going to use will be, let me turn down a little bit. The only colors we're going to use will be blacker than most blacks. We'll use a black canvas and just a single finger instead of a brush. So let's take and dab the tip of a pointer finger into the black like so. And now we're going to touch everything between jaw and temple, cheek and nostril, lip and eyebrow on both sides of the mouth. You folks at home are welcome to use a thumb, use a pinky or pinky toe. I just want you to enjoy yourselves. Get the feel of the color until it suits you. And just gently tap, tap, tap the color into the shape of a forehead. There we go. Maybe like we're looking for a tiny button to press. We want all to be approximately the same deep space black hole black, moving between our canvas and our fingertip. Hold up. I got my pages wrong, y'all. Look here, I'm getting too excited. My pages printed out incorrectly. Okay. Let me read you this other piece. I'll come back to that one. I'll come back to it because really, this piece here, honestly, is the piece that I've been thinking about that I have only read out once, and it's in this other book that no one has seen. And once I read it, then I maybe can get back to the Bob Ross thing. Okay, it's called Between Practice, 1984. And it's in numbers. Maybe it sounds like a poem. I think it's prose. But let me just read it to you. 1. Afternoons in Florida, while my favorite cousin suffered summer school, I climbed the tall, hot fence of the elementary school behind his house to practice and dream of dunks. 2. I was 13. My mother was on a Caribbean cruise in the state of longing. Her husband was on a German army base in the state of longing. They left me with relatives in a distant state of longing. 3. Sometimes I talked with the posters on my cousin's walls. Robed Moses Malone diving into a sea of basketballs. George Iceman Gervin sitting with his long legs crossed on an ice throne as he palmed 2 silver basketball spheres. A cool I tried carrying with me out to the basketball court where the heat stretched my bones. 4. Sometimes my cousin Noon Pie would stand at the fence and after a moment or two call me in to the terrible boredom of a house packed with her 4 sisters. Once, the 2 oldest girls pinned me to the floor, and the oldest sister straddled me while the stronger sister held my face and covered my panic in lipstick. I recall it now, my made-up face in the mirror, with pleasure. 5. I have said so little about poetry because I knew so little about poetry then. 6. Mute, fluid, confused, determined, sometimes Noon Pie and I dry-humped in a large walk-in closet. She was my age. Sometimes she leafed through my drawing book. Once my cousin, AKA her oldest brother, found us and yanked me by my ankles into the air, upside down and flailing like a fish pulled from a bucket of water. 7. I may have known by way of intuition the silences that come before poetry. Our silences when a relative named Tin Pan appeared on the doorsteps one night with the knife wounds evidence staining his shirt, and the woman of the house led him to her bathroom. Our silence when the day after a black boy was covered suddenly, permanently by the lake near their home, the mute, fluid, confused, determined practice of silence, the practitioners of silence. 8. Noon Pie and her siblings knew they were not my blood cousins because their parents told them, but I was loved with the severity and indifference and kindness of any cousin. 9. I spent my afternoon studying old photos of the man of the house, a tall, very black man. In them, he wore a basketball uniform and looked more like one of his daughters than his son. I took him as proof basketball was in my blood because I did not know then that they were not blood. 10. The woman of the house was my stepfather's aunt. Her tongue often cut everything and everyone down to size. 11. My mother was afraid of her. 12. Once, when my cousin took me to play basketball, we stood with his friends beneath a few trees and smoked weed. Though I only got one puff, it ruined me for the game. I would have been ruined even without the dope, to be honest. Man, if I had that nigga height, laughed one of my cousin's friends. I was wasted, I was a waste. 13. Because it was a small, mostly black beach town at the edge of a big, mostly white beach town, the teenage black boys tried harder to be hard. Some of them jumped tourists, taking their money, beach gear, and sunglasses. Some of them vanished into the jails or shotgun houses. My cousin survived on charm and luck. His sisters survived because they remained locked in their father's house. 14. Do you want to be a basketball player? The man of the house asked me when he found me holding his son's basketball in my lap. Do you want to be an artist? He asked me when I showed him my notebook drawings. Do you want to be a man? The man of the house asked me when he found me weeping because my mother had not returned. He's going to be 7 foot tall, my cousin bragged when his friends asked my age. I was 13 and already more than 6 feet high. 16. I'd look at the man of the house looking at the photos of himself as a young basketball player. I'd listen to the way he talked to his son at dinner. I was there when his wife smoked cigarettes, lacing profanity through the affection she shared with him. Her death years later will be the reason for his death shortly thereafter. 17. You must be a foot taller, my mother said when she finally returned, but to me, it was she who seemed smaller. 18. After my cousin told me strong calf muscles were the secret to jumping power, I set the balls of my feet at the edge of the stairs in the house, lowering my heels as far as I could toward the floor, then pressing my heels up as high as I could for as many times as I could, as often as I could. 19. My mother's relatives are tall, I told the boys in Florida when they asked where I'd gotten my height. My father's relatives are tall, I told the boys back home when they asked where I'd gotten my height. 20. I used to think practice was a form of preparation for the game, but now I think the game is what happens between practice. 21. What I remember is the way the man of the house looked over my drawings. Snoopy's nose needed to be longer, he said. Why did people only have 3 fingers, he asked. Then he pushed the pages back to me and he'd say, I want to see improvements tomorrow. 22. Again and again, the basketball jammed against the front of the rim, jolting my whole body backward and back to the tarmac, or the ball ricocheted from the rim, arching overhead. Sometimes I glanced toward the fence, relieved Noon Pie was not there watching. When I jogged to retrieve the basketball, I failed so often. 23. I failed so often, I came to accept it was failure I was practicing. In poetry, I have failed so often, I've come to accept it as failure I am practicing. 24. My stepfather's mother had him when she was 14. She was barely around those summers. My stepfather knew almost nothing of his father and did not care to ask. He was raised by a man named Stick, but if you asked him, he would say he raised himself. 25. I should not call him my stepfather. I have never called him my stepfather. 26. First the mother died, and shortly thereafter the man of the house died, and later my father's mother died. My father wept, and I was angry to see him weeping. Though Florida was his home, he was rarely there those summers. 27. We have never discussed our fathers or mothers, though the space between our fathers and mothers is what makes us like one another. 28. The first time I dunked that summer, no one was there to see it, not even I was witness. The ball passed suddenly through the rim, and though I had been trying for weeks, I did not know how it happened, and when it happened, I tried again and again to do it again. So there's that. Okay, let me try this thing. I only brought these 3. If I had something else, I would try something else. Okay, let's do it. Bob Ross paints your portrait. Today, we're going to get to work on the details of your expression. And believe it or not, the only colors we're going to use will be blacker than most blacks. We'll use a black canvas and just a single finger instead of a brush. So let's take and dab the tip of a pointer finger into the black like so. And we're going to touch everything between jawbone and temple, cheek and nostril, lip and eyebrow on both sides of the mouth. You folks at home are welcome to use a thumb, use a pinky or pinky toe. I just want you to enjoy yourselves with the feel of the color until it suits you. And just tap, tap, gently tap the color into the shape of a forehead. There we go. Maybe like we're looking for a tiny button to press. Again, when I turn this page, it looks like something else. Like we're looking for a tiny button to press. We want it all to be approximately the same deep space black, black hole black, moving between our canvas and fingertip, gently tapping, barely touching layers of fingerprint until we have the texture of a deeply layered black. Okay? Now we're going to put some of the past in the background around your mind all the way out to the edges of the canvas where all kinds of things are happening. In the distance, maybe we'll place a mother and father, but we'll only make them visible in your expression. What's so very nice about these black canvases is if there's light shining directly on them, they look totally different. The night sky, the landscape, the mother and father. We want it all to just appear, to disappear, and disappear. It's almost like two paintings in one. We want to touch gently enough to calm the longing, the boundless beauty bound in you, like so. And we can begin applying little black stars in the background without changing our technique very much. Wherever we picture stars, we can just touch the canvas like so. And we can add black stars for eyes and black stars for scars. We want it as black as the space around the constellation. And now maybe we want to take and add a little bit more of the past. It's happening all the time. Just enough to convey what we're trying to feel, the texture beneath the finger, okay? Maybe one parent is a little bigger than the other in some way. Maybe one gives you your stinger and the other gives you your shell. So you'll have to work just a little bit harder to forgive yourself and lay in some of your favorite color, which is black, under the blackness, lamp black, ink black, boot black, blackjack and blacker, gently tapping, tapping. Now, I think I mentioned it earlier, but in case you missed it, if you have questions or comments or something we can help you with, please give us a call. Lay in some blue black, ivory black, jet black, and blacker, gently tapping and touching. There we go. I just love to hear from you. You have all kinds of beautiful depths and layers and shapes and shades of blacks about you. Yes, you do. Okay, now we're going to handle your hair like a lovely coat of black feathers, or it might be a black feather hat or wig or afro or aura. And we'll take our finger and just make little crosses across your crown. Folks trying this at home might want to make big, bold plus signs when you feel bold and expressive, whatever you like. Black hair, black as the night before it turns gray in the darkness, the color of sadness or escape. If we pick up a little bit of darkness under the color, that's okay. That's just fine. We want to pull the darkness out from the edge and blend it over the curve of your nose, following the curve of your speech down into the onyx, the gunmetal, the black magic rabbit hole of the top hat over the mind kind of black, moving between canvas and finger. Take your time. Soon the darkness stands back from you a little. Everything in the background where your body begins and ends. Can you feel yourself emerge as you fall backwards? Wait till you hear what I've got planned for next week. Is who hurt you equal to who you hurt? Is who you love equal to who loves you? We'll start right there and move in the direction of desire. But right now, let's begin working on your shadows. Thank y'all.
It's such an exciting day for me. It really is. Two of my favorite poets, and they're sitting right next to me. It's such an honor to be here in the creative writing program at NYU, to have the colleagues that I have and the students that I have the privilege of teaching, and the poems. I think, oh my God, why didn't I write this? Because you did it. Today, I feel very lucky because I'm working on a poem. It's in draft. It's a dialogue. My good friend since Williams, since college, Helga Davis, has agreed to help me out. And I will say about this, it's a dialogue, but they're not speaking to each other. It's in memory of Masha Amini, who was pulled in to the police station in Iran and then ended up in a coma and died. And I was wondering what it would be like if the future followed all of us to the recognition of the moment that someone else collapsed. And, would we, it's yeah. It sounds odd. But it's called Triage, in memory of Masha Amini.
I can say she started on an avenue, not a street. The avenue had the seduction sunlight dripping down can bring to a place. She turned a corner as I looked up, distracted by the light's texture, its softness almost tangible, though I confess to you now, beauty was communicated only by a red-orange tint in the morning sky, bleeding as it does into high-rise windows. Red sky in the morning, some kind of sing-song dribble claiming the scene. Rhyme, fable, legend, fisherman's fodder. Now that we have arrived in a sky full up with weather, why have an old adage admonish her so early in the day? Still, my memory of this day will remain in all her tomorrows, even as she steps right through the beauty of now. To catch up with her means no longer seeking. To overtake her means she's no longer there. No cars approach as she is enveloped by a crowd crossing against the light. I wait. There exists no turn she can take as she adjusts to being carried along here where the avenue widens like a river among nature's neutral darknesses. She could turn in, but why would she go where she would not be seen? Or where she is the only one seen, or by whoever waits among the trees? Why would she, after all the she's taken in by the trees? The straighter the walk, the more relaxed each steps, her hips swinging freely, her shoulders curved down. I won't note that for the future. It's the opposite that gets noted, the tension. The clenched fingers, the quickened step, the rush, the turn. A sudden stop. She's tripped. Distracted by what? An unplanned thought? It's difficult to anticipate what moves her, given nothing is known beforehand with a subject who wanders.
A long ladder of little truths form an apex, the summit from which a fall begins. Does a fall differ from a collapse? Does anyone stand behind ensuring each one felled collapses the world's order? Or does a life unfold through movement? A pull, a hit, the bruise, no bruise. Help me. The day is burning up. The earth smolders from the top down. Heat death of the universe. Reddening sky, and yet there is a chill in these limbs, a drawing in of the shoulders, air touching exposed places in a body yearning for shelter beyond the architecture of walls and ceilings, taking breaths within the limits of the present.
Why is she entering a store beyond the trees? Here, where the trees have begun to occur one at a time in the straight lines of city planners. What could she need this early from the apothecary? I idle, am idling. B12, D3 hand lotion, aspirin. I cross the street, stare into an all-windowed showcase to catch her reflection as she completes her transaction. Her purchase is small and pocketed. Must I figure out a way to speak to her? The unknowns could be relevant, could add up to a narrative. Even the irrelevant, the stuff that simply seems a distraction from her movement, the details rising from pure restlessness heading towards neither an end nor an advancement in knowing, reaches out to inform me.
The drugstore rings its bell when one leaves too. There is symmetry to their need for surveillance and my need to announce I am in need. And now I am leaving. Bye and bye. If everything is coming into being except possibility, then why say presence or presence departing? The doorway is a place to work from. I enter to leave with more. Outside again, the breath grabs at air that feels less regulated, less mediated, with a breeze in it.
She turns and sees through me. Her gaze falling away before anyone can themselves turn away. Hers is the scanning that takes nothing with it. She sweeps the landscape only to drop her lids before receiving recognition. No one cares to be covered over like that. Is it a headache? Is that what makes her unable to take me in? I could get the shop owner to divulge what she purchased. But we aren't there yet. For now, I remain with her, keep in step. The trick is not to need, not to stutter, not to get ahead. What I am struggling with is a nagging sense that she has no knowledge of how to arrive. If that's the case, she will never reach me. Is she simply existing within the day, aimless as wind without its direction? Is that enough information to gather? She did this, she went here. Is that a life? This is not the moment to be asking questions, though it's in my nature to live beyond this moment, to exist ahead of now.
Why won't we just say the future is behind us? We know it already, but it needs to be said, or we will struggle against the wrong ones. They should have given me these Tic Tacs for free. They should open the doors and disengage the bell, and then maybe we could emerge, engage the collapse, understanding time differently. Far from the base of the trees, roots are surfacing in the road like a personal insult that refuses to be covered over, existing to trip up anyone who refuses to remember who owns the ground we stand on. Just when we thought we had taken a step forward, the rising roots could bring anyone down. Why won't we just say, the future is behind us? To speak it would be to agree that the second we were in each other's sight, no matter where, we would collapse at once, The collapse would be the moment sight met the others falling. The realignment with a life and its loss momentarily would be in sync. A response in a rare moment of alignment in the body to a body being refused its future.
I can't say what she holds close. Regret, desire, remorse, anticipation, loss, who knows? Perhaps just a flatness, a blank. She has paused in the middle of her way forward. Why stop here? She won't continue. I will be seen by her, become her subject in the way a glimpse takes one in before dropping you back into the pool of anyone.
Adjacency is never meant to hold more than you next to me. A life function such that I can say, I am here, I cross with or against the light, I've lived. So little there is to say about what can be held. A person might catch in the throat, all the intangibles blocking a completed breath. I will say, she was here.
The question remains, does she know I am coming? The street's openness protects or exposes her. Which is it? No one has to decide now. Whatever it was that caused her to pause turns its ignition in reverse. She walks a bit slower, now tugging at the phone in her back pocket, though no phone is retrieved. All the pigeons have lifted off, perhaps. A brightness blankets the day. All is risen or rising up.
All movement persists only as a sensation of falling. What to live for becoming what to die for in the doubling. She loosened her headscarf. Were there rules for before, for beyond the collapse? We must have decided when they encircled, though it was, of course, a recognition, a mirror existence. Her fall into the difficulty of it all. An emergency radiated, not innate, entered only through a doubling. The knee buckling, the ankle refusing to rotate. Just a softening at the joint as the body goes to ground.
There are probably other signs, perhaps in the jaw, that are telling in the moment and might be of interest if one could get closer, could approach nearer the target. Is she a target or a subject? Are her days a mountain, a mirror, or a hole? At some point, she will unfold like a manual, an explanation for her proclivities. But for now, she is unchartered, seemingly directionless. Always things are shifting on the avenue in my mind, in my heart, inappropriate, perhaps. Projections onto the object she's become, onto the shape of her, but not onto her knowability. Projection can be transformed into a verb. Every subject is a lonely subject. Life's target. The closer we get to her, the more we fill it up with what we need to stay steady. Let's leave it at that. You understand. Keeping our eyes open, the goal for now is to follow our subject and wait. Wait for what? The wait is for her, for her to need someone to step in, someone to intercede on her behalf, someone to reroute the path, ungird the grid, approach her from furthest away. To love is to hold what is furthest in the future close. The one in the future who is literate about what the past put in place to erode the flow of time can set her straight, keep her upright. For now, she will exist for us as a natural addition, a neutral position, the way light can make one get up and walk to a window, or run into a meadow, or walk up a too steep series of steps. At an appointed time, I will have to outrun her in order to meet her in the future.
The collapse at first is known only to her, a blow on witness as it doubles down with force. Then what to live for becomes what to die for in the doubling. All our singular selves entering into her moment of collapse alongside her. Her fall arises as the state takes a life, forcing the ankles to pivot. She loosened her headscarf.
She loosened her headscarf?
She loosened her headscarf.
She loosened her headscarf.
Only that.
Just that?
Only that. Then the collapse is within the life itself. There remains no real antidote to I am falling except to fall without coming apart from the day awaiting the falling into the fall before another step can be taken, delaying the texture of whatever is touched when one touches down, to become granular, breaking up the muted call with its fractured texture of whatever is touched when one touches down, the hard familiar hit of ground texture of whatever is touched when one touches down, wrecked by the weight of the one standing up in the texture of whatever is touched when one touches down, the frantic desire to undo the moment of falling into whatever is touched until cruelty breaks apart the self, the vowels are lost to consonants, the R's raging war, rousing a silence, sinking into refusing the rising up, the eyes rising up when one touches ground. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. What great joy and relief. I think you get to a certain point in a writing life, and you feel so much comfort and relief to not only share the stage, but to share the work of developing a pedagogy with two poets who have meant so much for me, who I've read religiously for many years before I got to tell them how much they meant to me, as a way of knowing a way forward. So I just want to thank them first as a fan and as folks who have really been edifying in my career on and off the page. So thank you to Claudia and Terrence. What luck to teach poetry and to think, right? To me, the poem is a device of thinking. And if my students, I know you're here, we do a lot of thinking in our class. We think around each other, and we help each other think better. And I think the most enriching thing I get out of this project of teaching, this great laboratory, this great experiment of the work of being a teacher, is that you help me think better. So thank you to you. Speaking of teaching, this poem, I have a, she's 12 years old now, but I have a cousin who, when she was 7, her name is Sarah, I was teaching her how to write, as one does, as older cousins do. And but she was trying to find a way out of it. She just had enough, right? And she says to me, this poem has this, her quote as an epigraph. She says, "What's the point of writing if you're just going to force a bunch of ants to cross a white desert?" And I said, you know what, touche. It's one, I said, okay, you know, let's just get ice cream, all right? But it's one of those things, I'm the kind of person where if I get into a discussion with someone, my best rebuttals come weeks later, often at 3 a.m, staring at the ceiling. It's like, oh, that's what I should have said to him. So in the same fashion, this rebuttal came years later to Sarah. Dear Sarah, and if you follow these ants, they'll lead you back to stone tablets in older desert, where black bones once buried are now words, where I wave to you at 2:34 a.m. They survived the blast by becoming shrapnel embedded in my brain, which is called learning. But maybe I shouldn't talk like this. Maybe I should start over, Sarah. I messed up. I'm trying to stay clean, but my hands are monsters who believe in magic. Sarah, the throat is also an inkwell, black oil wrung through your father's fingers after a day beneath the Buick. Say heartbreak and nothing will shatter. Say Stonehenge and watch the elephants sleep like boulders blurred in Serengeti rain. It doesn't have to make sense to be real. Your Aunt Rose, gone 2 years now, like a trick they forgot to finish. And the air holds your voice as it holds its own vanishing. Maybe you are the true soldier, ant hoarder of what's so massive it could crush you into a twitching comma. Sarah, your name sharpens daily against the marble of your mother's teeth. There are sparks in every calling, and called, we press our faces to the womb till we're jokes on our way to cracking up. And maybe you're right, little Ant Queen. With your shoes the shade of dirty paper, white desert, your pink and blue pens untouched. After all, who can stare at so many ruins and call it reading? This family of ants, fossilized against the page. You slam the book shut, look out at the leafless trees doused in red April rain, where none of us are children long enough to love it. And this longer poem is called Not Even. And it kind of borrows the journal entry, so I'll pause in between the sentences. Not even. Hey, I used to be a fag. Now I'm a checkbox. The pen tip jabbed in my back. I feel the mark of progress. I will not dance alone in the municipal graveyard at midnight, blasting sad songs on my phone for nothing. I promise you, I was here. I felt things that made death so large it was indistinguishable from air, and I went on destroying inside it like wind in a storm. The way Lil Peep says, I'll be back in the morning when you know how it ends. The way I kept dancing when the song was over because it freed me. The way the street light blinks twice before waking up for its night shift like we do. The way we look up and whisper sorry to each other, the boy and I, when there's teeth. When there's always teeth on purpose. When I threw myself into gravity and made it work, I made it out by the skin of my griefs. I used to be a fag, now I'm lit, Once, at a party set on a rooftop in Brooklyn for an artsy vibe, a young woman said, sipping her drink, "You're so lucky. You're gay, plus you get to write about war and stuff. I'm just white. Pause. I got nothing." Laughter, glasses clinking. Because everyone knows yellow pain pressed into American letters turns to gold. Our sorrow, Midas touched, napalm with a rainbow afterglow. Unlike feelings, blood gets realer when you feel it. I'm trying to be real, but it costs too much. They say the earth spins, and that's why we fall. But everyone knows it's the music. It's been proven difficult to dance to machine gun fire. Still, my people made a rhythm this way. Away, my people so still in the photographs as corpses. My failure was that I got used to it. I looked at us mangled under the time photographer's shadow and stopped thinking, get up, get up. I saw the graveyard steam in the pinkish dawn and knew the dead were still breathing. If they come for me, take me out. What if it wasn't the crash that made us, but the debris? What if it was meant this way? The mother, the lexicon, the line of cocaine on the Mohawk boy's collarbone in an East Village sublet in 2007. What's wrong with me, Doc? There must be a pill for this. Because the fairy tales were right. You'll need magic to make it out of here. Long ago, in another life, on an Amtrak through Iowa, I saw for a few blurred seconds a man standing in the middle of a field of winter grass, hands at his sides, back to me, all of him stopped there save for his hair scraped by low wind. When the countryside resumed its wash of gray wheat, tractors, gutted barns, black sycamores, and herdless pastures, I started to cry. I put my copy of Didion's The White Album down and folded a new dark around my head. The woman beside me stroked my back, saying in a Midwestern accent that wobbled with tenderness, "Go on, son, you get that out now. No shame in breaking open. You get that out, and I'll fetch us some tea." Which made me lose it even more. She came back with Lipton in paper cups, her eyes nowhere blue and there. She was silent all the way to Missoula, where she got off and said, patting my knee, "God is good. God is good." I can say it was gorgeous now, my harm, because it belonged to no one else. To be a dam for damage. My shittiness will not enter the world, I declared, and quickly became my own hero. Do you know how many hours I've wasted watching straight boys play video games? Enough. Time is a mother. Lest we forget, a morgue is also a community center. In my language, the one I recall now only by closing my eyes, the word for love is ill, and the word for weakness is you. How you say what you mean changes what you say. Some call this prayer. I call it watch your mouth. Rose, I whispered as they zipped my mother in her body bag. Get out of there. Your plants are dying. Enough is enough. Time is a motherfucker, I said to the gravestones, alive, absurd. Body, doorway that you are, be more than what I'll pass through. Stillness, that's what it was. The man in the field in the red sweater, he was so still he became somehow more true, like a knife wound in a landscape painting. Like him, I caved. I caved and decided it will be joy from now on. Then everything opened. The lights blazed around me into a white weather, and I was lifted, wet and bloody, out of my mother, into the world, screaming, and enough. Thank you.
Wow. I was taking notes, and maybe we'll get back to some of the questions that came out of the poems today. But one of the things that occurred to me was a very straightforward question that I did not tell you I was going to ask you this backstage. Take one of these if you want, for both of you. How has either your teaching changed or your writing changed since the pandemic?
As a perennial introvert, my writing got better. By better, I guess I mean I felt less guilty about not going to places and not having to be at things. And so I think it just normalized introspection, which is what it was really important for me as a writer. I think I spent a lot of time off the page and thinking. The same thing I think, with my students, sometimes I said, this draft went way too quick, right? Stanza 2, we can stop here and think about this for a week. We can solve this, right? Take it with you. Walk with your poems. And I think it allowed me to really do that and kind of normalize an elongated somatic process.
That's an interesting question. I think in the decade before the pandemic, I felt like Paul Revere. I was like running around saying, the white supremacists are coming, the white supremacists are coming.
You were right.
And then I went home. I was like, they're here, okay. They have arrived. How has my teaching changed? Well, I was happy to get back in the classroom. I think that is not a change, but a welcome. I don't think it's good for me to spend a lot of time by myself. Because then my focus becomes my focus, and I like when my focus is built by the world. And I think my students, they take me places that I wouldn't normally go, and I appreciate that.
Do I have to answer that one too, if you come up with the question?
Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't planning on asking it, so I hadn't thought of an answer here. Yeah, I think I certainly enjoyed the phenomena of quarantine, especially April, when things really closed down. And I think I'm still there, so that even tonight, the phenomena of like a public reading for things that you wrote mostly in quarantine or in solitude is a very striking and new feeling for me personally. I think I still like it, though. I think I would rather not be around and let the poems exist without me. That's sort of what the quarantine did. I think the poet maybe isn't so important anymore. The question on teaching, though, I think I have thought about that in terms of things seeming smaller now. You know, everything's smaller, but certainly for us, that smallness is a great kind of intimacy that is now in the classroom. I stopped taking roll. You know, people show up when they want to show up. I am taking it, but, you know, I won't fail you now, maybe. I'll talk to you, you know, like what's going on, that's what I'll say. But I do think, even before COVID, the notion of like intimacy and tangibility, like people sitting next to you, I feel like maybe that was only happening for us. You know, how often you were actually sitting at a table where people would talk about whatever you did the night before was a very striking and special thing for what we do in the workshop. So that's still there, but now when you add to that whatever has shifted for people psychologically after COVID, it's also there. And in the classroom space, I think it's amazing. I think the work's better. And I'm thinking undergrad and graduate student, perhaps maybe the stakes have changed for them. I can't say what that is, but I do feel like our job has a different kind of urgency to it since the pandemic. I mean, maybe it is from going from that solitude back to some kind of like public space or something. Should I ask another one? Let me look at some of these questions. Let's do that. And then, I mean, we can come around. Or are y'all supposed to ask me a question? Who's in charge here? Let's ask one of the student questions. From Kristen Davis Bailey, a first-year writer in creative nonfiction. I'm trying to navigate being an individual writer versus being a cultural worker in relationship to broader communities and political issues. How have you navigated these dynamics in your artistic journeys? What are some of the challenges, opportunities, or responsibilities you see facing writers and cultural workers in this way? You got it? You got the whole thing?
It's a hard question because I think I never really see my life as in different segments. It's all I'm writing, I'm teaching, the teaching informs the writing, I'm thinking about a thing. I don't think it's useful to think 10% of me is here and 30% of me is here. And I think you do the things that you do and you're moved to do them. And you're committed to the things that you do. And people from the outside might name one thing, and another thing. But for you, you're doing the thing that you do, the things that you do. When it starts feeling like I'm putting in my 10% here and then you should stop. I mean, you should do what you want, but I would begin to worry about you.
Yeah, that's in the same way. I think when you start to see yourself as sectors and divide yourself, then the question is, what is a self? It's because there's things that are unknown to us, and I think one must insist that a selfhood is an organic and ever-changing thing, and to assume that it could be calcified and then expressed statically or managed, to manage these sectors, I think, ceases. It ceases to be creative and pleasurable. But on the other hand, there's also, many folks who write and then do other things, right? I know a lot of our students are involved in grassroots activism, and I think for me it's just important to realize that we always, particularly on panels and even in the classroom, we in the culture where we see education as something we obtain. I obtain a degree. I possess knowledge. This is my basket, and I will fill it with knowledge with a capital K. And I think
a very powerful examination of that metaphor and the myth of that metaphor is that perhaps these things cannot be resolved. That the doubt of how do I commit to this while commit to the desk and create words on paper, and the doubt and the uncertainty and the sort of problem solving around that is the work. It's the living as a person in a hyper-politicized world with political repercussions. And so I think it's, in the classroom, I say, it's interesting that we ask our artists to solve or come to terms with these aporias, but we don't ask how the weapons makers come to terms with what they've done. We don't ask about folks who sign bills to approve drone strikes on how they come to terms. And I think there's a kind of a sort of dichotomy in what we expect. And I think embracing this friction, one of my favorite thinkers and writers, Myung-Mi Kim, she says, I'm not interested in alterity or opposition, but a friction of proximity in which this tension, this heat that comes out of it that can't be resolved is where the art happens. Doubt is energy. So it's not really an answer, but I hope that's the point.
I'm going to answer, and I think one of y'all should ask a question to the rest of us. So I'm queuing somebody up for it. I would just add to that, having had some of these conversations with the students, I often think about it like where we're having the conversation, so that when you invoke the laboratory, absolutely everything that's happening here, it's also kind of a professional laboratory, so that how you negotiate your individual priorities, concerns in the cultural space that really becomes in the academy a laboratory space, but again, a space for exercising a lot of these questions. So I guess I'm sort of saying there's sort of a personal way to separate oneself, to divide one's interests and concerns, and there's a kind of notion of how to couch that in kinds of academic or professional terms. And I bring it up because it is where we are. I think outside of the academy, people joke about what happens here, but here it is that, a laboratory where we can explore how we negotiate what is actually personal and what is public, I think. So I would just add that in terms of like where those questions get asked is as important as the questions themselves, I think.
This is a question for both of you, because it's something I just was asked to be on this podcast, and they ask you for songs you would take with you if you were marooned on an island. And I was wondering, as writers, what word would you take with you?
Word?
Word.
Oh my goodness.
The elder goes first.
Oh, is that what I am? What word? Help? I mean, I can be funny with it now. Help. That my first funny answer is help. But the last thing I was reading was just something from Ilya Kaminsky, the poet, thinking on silence as a kind of really valid kind of language, kind of word, kind of power that is, so you assume on this island that silence would be there, but I think about something like that, like coming to terms with maybe that word being a kind of silence. I don't know. Or help.
I think I have kind of a cop-out, but I'm going to argue for it. In Tibetan Buddhism, we have something called, in many other South Asian cultures too, a mantra, which is kind of an anti-word. It is a sound strung together with intention rather than meaning. So the mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, is, they're syllabic. We can make them phonetic, but they're kind of a unit of sound, and it has meaning and intention. And so I think I would bring a mantra. It's what happens when we bring a meaning, intention to a place, which I think is very capacious, as opposed to word signifying something. And it gives me something to do, chanting, as I wait for help.
Oh. That's a good one. OHM has a lot of flexibility on it. I'll ask another graduate student question, and then I think Ocean is going to be your turn to pitch one to us. I want to add to this one too. So from one of our MFA students, so all three writers, what practices outside of explicitly writing and reading literature inform your creative work? For example, spiritual practices, bodily practices, other mediums of art. And it's just essentially like, what would you be doing if you weren't a writer or a teacher? I also hear in there, but it's a different question, but I'm adding that too. What would you do if you weren't? What practices outside of writing and reading inform your work?
I also live, I grew up in New England, and I live in rural Massachusetts in part of the year. And it's really humbling and beautiful in that we kind of take turns taking care of each other's gardens and homes. And I think I would probably be a farmer. The other week I was protecting a friend's chicken coop because it was being attacked by a bobcat. And but I am a Buddhist, so I cannot harm this bobcat, and I don't want to. So we were up all night with a Nerf gun. It's like a battery powered. It shoots these ping pong balls, and we're just drinking coffee from flasks in our Carhartt overalls, and waiting for this bobcat. And it worked. It just we got it. A little love tap on the side, and the chickens were spared. And so I don't know if that's. I think because of where I live and the way of my friends, I would just be doing a lot of that. I think happily.
The practice of environmental engagement is what that sounds like. When my daughter was born, who's 22, I bought a piano with the first little bit of money I got, and I started playing it and trying to play it. And I think after 22 years, I can probably play for maybe 5 minutes, 3 minutes, and convince you. I find that's a pretty good thing. If it's taken me 20 minutes to get a solid 3 minutes on an Eric Satie song. So it hasn't really found its way into the work because I think it's one of the few things I do that just doesn't require any kind of expertise or any language. I'm just sitting there enjoying, whatever the piano will give me. So I think that's some kind of unofficial practice.
God, I don't know. Is that a valid answer? What would I be doing? I mean, what do I do? What other thing informs my sleeping, maybe? I always feel like sleeping is my superpower. If I can't sleep, I can't do anything. And it means it's a sign that a lot of things are awry and chaotic and fighting within myself. So when I can sleep, it means that I can read, I can write, I can talk to you. And when I can't, it means I'm in trouble. So I think I'm going to use that.
I was curious, as folks who have been teaching much longer than I am, what are some of the challenges that you were able to resolve in the classroom for you? A real nuts and bolts question. We all come, every class is different, has its own pace, its own personality. But what was a moment for you where you was able to see a solution to a roadblock in a classroom and found a way forward?
I think the roadblock is ongoing. I'm going to use this image of myself growing up in South Carolina in a house that, it didn't have that many magazines, really maybe Ebony it had. So for me there was no internet, this is like the 80s. So for me to get any kind of knowledge, I had to leave my home. So I obviously went to school, but let's not count that place. I would get on my bike and I would ride across town to our public library. So everything I got there is super important. Flannery O'Connor, James Baldwin, just on my own. But imagine now, though, myself in South Carolina being able to get all that information on my phone. So the computer is now like handy to me. So I find the challenge is trying to convince, like I think my relationship to the canon, to the library, it's a generational question I'm answering here from a generational position. I feel like it's important because I had to really go get it in a certain kind of way. And I think I'm confronting a group of people who are like, I got the same information. Like, just because I didn't get it in the way that you got it doesn't make it any more valuable. It's still information, but because of my entry into that information, generationally speaking, I'm constantly trying to like negotiate what that power is, because it seems like, and I think my students may think that it's more circular, and I'm like, well, it can't be triangular, obviously. It was triangular when whoever went the furthest to get the information sat at the top of the triangle. That would be your professor. And now, because of these questions of like having computers in your pocket, I say an ongoing question is, whatever that space is between not a triangular dynamic in the classroom, not all the way circle, but ideally something more circular than, or pyramid structure, I guess. So I say to you, every day it's just a negotiation of that kind of power, and where you insist that you did go further, and so maybe it is worth something, and where you say, you're right, same ideas.
I think, I've been teaching now for 30 years, and I think in the beginning, what happened in the classroom was this sense that I was the person who could resolve all the tension in the classroom. And obviously that's not true. So I had to come up with a strategy where it became part of my pedagogy that whatever happened in the classroom was resolved in the classroom. And so I began a long time ago to say to the students, if it's happening here, we're all responsible to it. And we won't continue until whatever it is gets resolved. For example, this is way, way, way back in the day, but I had a student who came to me and said, I want to take your class, but I don't want to be in the class because I cry. And to be honest, I didn't want to have to meet her again later to give her the whole class again. So I said, it's okay, come to class, and we as a class will we'll deal with the crying. And so in the class, she would start crying at different things. And at first, the class would look at me like, what's happening? And I would say, oh, she's crying. But it's okay. So we can continue. And I would say, can we continue? And she would say, yes. And we would continue. And so the whole class began to accommodate this thing. And so I think in different ways over time, that has just come in. So if I'm leaving the classroom feeling like I'm taking something unresolved, I have somehow failed that class on that day.
I'm going to ask one more question. Can you give people something to take with them? Like, I just saw Triangle of Sadness, but movies are probably too easy to do. The question I was going to ask when I mentioned backstage, and this is maybe an opportunity to do this one too, which is just like poems that moved you, because I'm still just trying to get something for people to go look up later. It's like, what would you give people to read out loud? Some Bridget Begin Kelly as a poet, some David Berman. If we were going to share poems, I was like, just even stopping by the woods on a snowy evening, it always sounds good. I don't have it memorized, so don't ask me to do it. So if you're just giving people things, songs, music, books, the last thing you read that they can just take with them to have other worlds open up for them, what would you shout out tonight?
I always have the same one because I love it so much. Vallejo's The Black Riders. There are blows in life so violent I can't answer. Blows as if from the hatred of God, as if all the deep orders in the world were backed up in the soul, and man, oh man, oh man.
I would. Orpheus in the Bronx by Reginald Shepard. An incredible, incredible thinker, sharp, virtuoso in how he kind of works through an argument, leans into it, makes himself culpable. A deep courage, and I think when I lack courage, I read Orpheus in the Bronx, a beautiful collection of essays published by University of Michigan, I believe. And a single poem I have in my office is Tours by C.D. Wright. And adjacent to that, also by C.D. Wright, is Our Dust. It's an incredible piece of writing.
Yeah. C.D. Wright, Lucy Brock-Broido, Bridget Begin Kelly. We're thinking about those poets in that group. Wanda Coleman is a great sonnet maker, an amazing poet. Even poets from the program more recently, Ama Kojo, Nicole Seeley, John Murillo, so many great poets, out there working right now. So triangle satin is interesting. This is a little thing between the eyebrow, apparently. Tar is interesting. Do we have more questions? I thought somebody was going to come on stage and get me right about now. That's what I heard. Oh, I heard it coming. I can keep going. Thank y'all. Can we give?
Thank you.
Welcome.
I want to thank my colleagues for their brilliance tonight and every day. What a gift it is to have you at NYU. You can pick up their books in the lobby downstairs right now. And if you like the event, we have readings every night all year at Writers House, Thursdays and Fridays. You can see the calendar on our website. Thank you for being here. Have a good night, everybody.